introducing Council Director, Sam.
Thank you very much. I don't think I've ever had such a welcome. I feel like I'm a K-pop star. So thank you all. First of all, for welcoming me to your school. It's amazing being here and having the opportunity of meeting you briefly. As I've been introduced, my name is Sam, Samantha, not Samuel, Samantha, but I call myself Sam, and I'm the director of the British Council in Korea. For those of you who don't know, the British Council is the UK's international organisation for cultural relations and educational opportunities. And we were created specifically to create friendly knowledge and understanding between the people of the UK and other countries, in this case Korea, and focusing on making a positive contribution to the countries in which we work. Okay? So we were set up in the 1930s with that aim in mind. We're a non-governmental organisation. We are apolitical. So whilst we work with government, we are not directed by government. That's really important. We work at arm's length from government. So I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about global leadership, and I thought I'd structure it in a way that hopefully will be interesting and engaging. So around the world, we've been discussing and defining leadership for hundreds of years. I'm sure if you look at Korean history, you will find the same. But there are different views depending on who you ask. I thought I would offer you initially some insight into the current thinking from the research of the University of Cambridge in the UK, and specifically the Institute of Sustainable Leadership. So according to research that they've carried out and their review, leadership is increasingly defined and judged in relation to complex global socio-economic and environmental risks and opportunities, and the pursuit of sustainable development. Okay? So whilst the literature has generated literally countless lists of universal leadership attributes, in the global context, a global mindset appears as a critical leadership attribute to cultivate. I'm not sure if you know what a global mindset is. A global mindset focuses on developing skills of open-mindedness, inclusivity, long-term and systemic thinking, and navigating complexity. I'm sure you're learning all of these skills at this school here. So, just to continue, so if you look at further work that's been done and some of the insights that's come from studying business leadership, Gupta and his associates suggest that one of the four essential tasks of leaders is to cultivate a global mindset by viewing cultural and geographic diversity as an opportunity, not just a challenge. And research by the Thunderbird School of Leadership of over 200 global executives and over 6,000 managers have characterized a set of individual qualities that are critical for leaders of tomorrow as a global mindset. So, if you want to be a leader of tomorrow with this global mindset, they say that you will require intellectual capital, which means global business savvy, cognitive complexity, cosmopolitan outlook, psychological capital, passion for diversity, quest for adventure, self-assurance, and social capital, intercultural empathy, interpersonal impact, diplomacy. And then some institutions will frame this global brand of leadership in terms of sustainability or future fitness. Leaders for the future are individuals who are compelled to make a difference by deepening awareness of themselves in relation to the world around them. In doing so, they adopt new ways of seeing, thinking, and interacting that result in innovative and sustainable solutions. So, to put it more simply, a global leader is someone who inspires and supports action towards a better world. So that is an introduction to some of the a tiny section of the academic research that's been undertaken into this concept of leadership, but particularly international and global leadership. But what does it mean on a more practical level? So I thought I'd talk about the world of work. It's something that you will be facing in a not too distant future. And they say that robots are the future. So here in Korea and around the world, there is a lot of investment in artificial intelligence, or more simply computers, and there's a lot of talk about them taking our jobs. So two economists at Oxford University, Carl Frey and Michael Osborne, produced a paper on the future of employment. How susceptible are jobs to computerization? And in this, they used new mathematical and statistical techniques to try and calculate the likely impact of technological change on a range of over 700 occupations. They ranked them from 1, you'll be fine, to 702, you better start looking at your CV. And just to give you a little bit of an insight, accountants and auditors were rated at 589, which is quite high. Tax examiners and collectors were rated at 586, which might bring a smile to some people's faces. Lawyers, for good or bad, rated at 115, so they're looking relatively safe. Physicians and surgeons were ranked at 15, a very safe ranking. May keep your parents happy if they're interested in you following medicine. If you're a healthcare social worker, you're likely to stay in great demand because they were ranked at number 8. So the theme from the list and the methodology is quite clear. Human-to-human interaction and judgment is in demand. Routine tasks are not. So, should we get stressed if the world of work is changing? We've seen this kind of transformation in the job markets before. In 1810, agriculture employed 90% of the American workforce. 100 years later, the figure was about 30%. Today, it's less than 2%. This might sound like a recipe for chaotic disruption and endemic unemployment, but the US economy has seemed to manage the transition quite well. In the past, technology has always ended up creating more jobs than it destroys. That's because the way automation works in practice, according to David Autor, an economist at MIT. Automating a particular task so it can be done more quickly or cheaply increases the demand for human workers to do the other tasks around it that have not been automated. So, should we be optimistic or pessimistic? That's for you to decide. But I'd recommend that at the very least you remain flexible in your outlook. The other area I wanted just to touch on was the need for lifelong learning and soft skills. The learning and teaching of soft skills will also be increasingly important. According to the US National Bureau of Economic Research, there is more emphasis on character skills such as perseverance, sociability and curiosity, which correlate with employees' ability to adapt to new situations and acquire new skills. And they are highly valued by employers. According to The Economist, character is a skill, it is not a trade, and schemes that teach it are both lasting and cost-effective. So you might need to think about further training in soft skills in order to be able to adapt through your life of work. The other area I thought I'd talk about is open doors and aspiring leaders. Our world today and its future can seem quite fragile. If you look at the world today, you can see unrest, disruption in many parts, in many countries. But I strongly believe in the value, indeed the need for us to go out and seek different experiences and cultures from our own. Be open to experiences from elsewhere. Being international in outlook will not make you less Korean. Now continue. So just coming back, being international in outlook will not make you less Korean, or it won't make me less British. It only adds to your experiences and to your skill set. And the realization that we are more alike, have similar aspirations than we sometimes realize. I've been fortunate in having the opportunity of living and working in a number of countries around the world. Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, and now Korea. And I've been very, very fortunate to have had that experience. It has only added to the knowledge and understanding that I have achieved, and I don't think you can easily do that from staying at home and just trying to experience other cultures from your bedroom or your sitting room. So I wanted to talk now just a little bit about a program that the British Council has invested in, which we call Future Leaders Connect, and which we set up in 2017. The focus of this program was to help and support and nurture the leaders of tomorrow. It helps build the capabilities of emerging young leaders to achieve their visions for global change, whilst also building lifelong connections and friendships across borders and with the UK. So this is an ongoing program. It's been running for a couple of years now. And I thought I'd share with you some of the feedback from some of the young people who've gone through this program. We did a survey of 50 of the 16,000 that applied and that participated in a leadership program at Churchill College in Cambridge and in the Houses of Parliament. Across the 12 countries represented and that participated, there was a high degree of consistency in the choices of young leaders. In a survey, we asked these young aspiring policymakers to complete. No current world leader was ranked top by respondents. So in a survey of these young people from 12 different countries, we asked them to tell us who they aspired to become as a leader. No current world leader was chosen by any of the young people involved. Leaders that came top in the 12 countries were Obama, Mandela, Malala. All of them famous for overcoming and confronting inequality and prejudice. And a number of issues of intergenerational equity were identified as most important by these young leaders. The top priority was access to education, second was youth opportunities, and third was sustainability, climate change and the environment. Whatever you decide, I believe we are all at our best when we're open and receptive to others, when we respect diversity and see the benefits of inclusion. Wherever your careers take you, I hope you retain your open international outlooks and continue to embrace diversity. I believe this quality makes us stronger as individuals, communities and countries. I know all of you have worked very hard to get here, and to provide the best opportunity for your ambitions. I wish you every success in the future, and whatever careers you may hold in this brave new world of ours. Thank you very much.
Before I start, I'd like to quickly apologize for all that chaos in our words. But he's okay now.
That is okay.
So on behalf of our students, on behalf of our students, I would personally really thank you for this brilliant presentation. But living in the age of globalization, what would be the essential qualities that high school students like us should foster in order to recognize and accept cultural differences correctly?
Can you repeat that question, please?
About the what should we foster in order to recognize and accept cultural differences correctly?
Part of it's an attitude, a lot of it's an attitude, a lot of it's about having an open mind. The other thing which I've always found interesting as well to undertake, and we do this at the British Council, I don't know if you've heard about unconscious bias. There are different tools that you can go personally and undertake, which will tell you what your unconscious bias is. You might think that you are not biased in any way at all, but it's a tool, not to make any one of us feel bad, but we all have these biases. And going through that process, I think, really helps you understand how your behaviours can be taken and seen by others, and hopefully will give you some of the skills to adapt that where appropriate. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your lecture. I really learned a lot of things. So moving on to the question. So in your lecture, you mentioned that the robots are the future, but nowadays, like, it is the first industrial revolution is proceeding, and lots of scholars are predicting that direct democracy will become real soon. So, for instance, citizens can just go for the most one vote after gathering the statistics about a certain topic, and in this current status, would leadership be necessary? So I would know your opinions about this one.
Okay, you need to break that question down slowly for me again. So, just read it again.
Nowadays, the first industrial revolution is proceeding, and many scholars are predicting that the direct democracy will be real. So it will be real. And in this current status, I want to ask your opinion about will the leadership will be necessary?
I'm not sure that I can predict the future, and I'm sure there are a number of different views on this. For what it's worth, my view is that leaders take very many different forms. We can always, we automatically think of the big names, the Obamas and the Mandelas when we think of leaders, yeah, political leaders perhaps, but leaders exist in our communities and at different levels, and so some of the skills and that I talked about that you might want to consider looking at, I think are as relevant to us in our everyday lives and will always be relevant because we're social animals, as they will be in the future. So I think it's, as I say, leaders exist in many different forms.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us your time and teaching us and talking to us. My question is that
now we're living in what we call the time of change, and we are facing the start of a new decade, 2020, in a very short amount of time. And though many people still remain quite conservative, society has grown to be more accepting of diversity. And young leaders are more vocal and active than ever in spreading acceptance all over the globe. So what are some approaches a young leader can take to create a safe environment free of hate and discrimination, and what are some qualities that could prove to be useful in such situations?
That's a big question. I mean, throughout history, we've seen change, and we've been at points where perhaps a sort of a positive future seems distant, and we've always been able to. There's always been individuals who have pulled together to make that positive change. What I see nowadays, and I commented on this earlier, just saying if you look around the world, there's so many areas of disruption. The most positive thing is the views of young people around the world. And actually, I'm sure your views and your ambitions and your aspirations for the future are not that much different to those of young people in the UK and in Asia and Africa and different parts of the world. And I honestly believe that young people today are more driven to trying to make positive change than even my generation was when I was young. Again, I mean, a lot of the characteristics I talked about in terms of the soft skills particularly, and the openness of mind, and the international outlook, I think are going to be critical to take forward some of the things that we worry about today. You know, if we talk about the environment and climate, that's a concern of most young people around the world, and there is action being taken, and it's being driven by young people. If you think of Greta Thunberg from Sweden, yeah. So, as I say, I think the future is yours. You have the ability to achieve great things, and to not only achieve great things for yourself, but look at a career and beyond career. And I would encourage you to take any opportunities you can to connect with your peers in other parts of the world, because together you'll be stronger.
Thank you.
Thank you for the lecture, ma'am. I would like to ask a question regarding your lecture about the topic under fourth industrial revolution. Since you mentioned that we need to have an open attitude for the fourth industrial revolution, however, I think that there should be a policy that have to be followed in order to have an open mindedness. And however, our government had a policy that tried to encourage those kind of open-mindedness, but however, it failed. So I would like to ask you if in UK, if there was any kind of policies that had that was focused to have an openness for people to have an open mindset regarding the fourth industrial revolution, and how could it be possible for and how could this kind of policies in UK could help the Korean government in adapting new policies?
I think, I mean, first of all, I'll just say, and I mentioned earlier that actually the Korean education system is highly regarded internationally, and part of that is the results that you get, the achievements that you young people have and make. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to be learned from different education systems. So the UK government has looked at the Korean education system to see if there are elements of that which should be introduced back into the UK. The UK system is based on ensuring that the young people, as they go through the curriculum, they learn different things. They also have the opportunities for engaging with people from different backgrounds and different parts of the world. So school exchanges, and even within communities, we're a very diverse population in the UK. So that in some ways makes it easier. Korea is less diverse. I don't know if any of you have been to the UK, but if you wander the streets of London, you'll see people from every part of the world. We are, for historical reasons, very inclusive, and we have a very diverse population. So it's perhaps more easy for young people in the UK to have that experience because they experience it on a day-to-day basis. But I do think that it does help if you have opportunities to go on exchange visits or study programs. There's a very large EU program called Erasmus. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. And the British Council manages it, but it's a multi-million-pound European program that provides support to, one element of it is providing support to young people who want to go and study or do part of their studies or to have an experience in other countries in Europe. And that facilitates that movement and exchange. And I strongly believe taking opportunities like that helps break down any stereotypes that you might have of people from other parts of other countries. It creates friendships, it creates common interests, and in the long term, it creates a safer world because you trust each other more. It's all about trust. So really, it's about having the platforms available to allow you to interact and engage with your peers in different parts of the world. That I believe is very, very powerful.
This is the last question.
Excuse me.
Hello. To start the question, I would like to thank you for giving us such precious time for this lecture. I was very impressed about the qualities you mentioned about being the future leader, such as open, receptive, mind to the cultural diversity. However, I'm not sure whether this kind of qualities could actually apply on the real world. For example, I would like to mention the Brexit. The agenda on the Brexit, as well it is well known, has been one of the controversial issues, and the parliamentary votes on this issue have been delayed. Although the Brexit's primary cause was the prevention of the asylum seekers and the international fee to the EU, there are still a lot to consider. For example, there are the reintroduction of borderline in the Ireland and the economic loss due to the absence of the tourists of the EU, the connection with the EU. So I would like to question, if you were in the position of making the final decision of the Brexit, what would you do in terms of the inclusivity and the receptive mind inclusion?
Thank you very much for that question. We call it the B word. It's been going on for 3 years now. I need to preempt my answer with something. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we're about to go into a general election in the UK on the 12th of December. And for a number of weeks before then, we have what we call PERDA. And PERDA is for government departments and are not supposed to talk about political the political environment in the UK. So I will not be able to answer your question about what would I do if I was the Prime Minister, or if I had more influence than I do. But what I will say about the environment that we've been in the last 3 years in the UK, I think it gives a perception of the UK as a closed country, and I don't believe that that's so. If you talk to, if you were lucky enough to go and talk to your peers, for example, in the UK at this point across the country, whatever political decisions are made around trade agreements and structures, ultimately the young people of the UK want to be as connected as ever. They see the value of that to themselves as individuals, to themselves as they approach their careers. It's almost impossible nowadays not to be connected in this world. The world is structured in a way that economics, trade, you need to have relationships with other countries. And you as individuals, depending on what career you want to take, need to bear that in mind. So I think because it's all that is talked about at the moment in terms of the UK, I think it can give the wrong perception. Young people are open, they want to access their peers, and they will be able to do so whatever happens. So, and they recognise the importance of that. I'm sorry that's not as full as answer as I'm perhaps able to give, but I hope that helps. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone, and I hope your colleague is feeling better.